It's a pleasure to be here to talk to you a little bit about some of the work we're doing, and I particularly want to talk about the frustration of being a scientist working on a disease that is almost preventable in 80% of the cases, and that's type 2 diabetes. If people were not sedentary, if they exercised and followed a better diet, 80%, I could go off and do something else because I'd be out of a job. But what we really need to do is give people the evidence that exercise is good, and that's what we do in our lab. So just to give you an idea about the severity of this disease, type 2 diabetes, at the moment there are 382 million people living with this disease. And you can see here, I'm holding a conference next year in Fiji, and people are saying, oh, well, that's just a junket. It's not. We're going to Fiji because this area, the Western Pacific area of the world, 138 million people in this area have this disease. There was a paper that came out this week identifying a gene for obesity in Samoans, but the Western Pacific region is going to cost the world a lot of money. But unfortunately, it's going to get worse. By 2035, it's projected to increase by 55%, this disease. This is a tsunami. This is very, very, very dire for the world. I'll show you the economic costs of this disease. But if you exercise, you halve the risk of diabetes if you have pre-diabetes. So it really is very simple, but the message is not getting across. And that's what we're trying to do in our lab. And I won't really go through this, but these are all the benefits of exercise. This is all proven, and yet you get reduced cardiovascular risk, improved lipid profile, and greater metabolic control. Now here's the damning statistics. In the dark green are people who never exercise. The middle are people who exercise a little bit, and the sort of yellow are people who exercise more than a little bit. And it's very clear to see that even though exercise prevents this disease, most people don't do it, okay? And this is so frustrating to me as a person who has exercised just about every day of my life since I was 18. And it does delay aging. I'm 76. Now, I'm not 76, but I bet you I'm older than you think. Now, this came out overnight, okay? This is actually hot off the presses. This was a press release on a study that was published overnight. Hence, I had to bring a fresh set of slides in this morning, and Anna got angry with me. This study showed that low physical capacity is second only to smoking as the highest all-cause mortality. So if you exercise, if you don't exercise, it's almost as bad as smoking. It's not quite as bad, but it's worse than everything else you can do. Right? Think about that. Okay? I exercise and I drink my red wine. I feel good about it. Right? Not too much. Okay? Now, the head researcher of this trial, Dr. Per Landervall, concluded we've come a long way in reducing smoking. The next major challenge is to keep us active and reduce physical inactivity such as prolonged sitting. Now, prolonged sitting is something that's honestly has become, there's more and more literature on this. It's called the smoking of the new millennium. So there are standing desks that you can get now, right? I think they should be implemented across all workplaces. I have a wonderful PA, but I don't get her to print my material. I print my material, I work on the 6th floor and I print my material on the 3rd floor. I do that so I can walk down the stairs, grab the manuscript, walk back up the stairs. I do that 2 or 3 times, and I exercise every day. I really need to do that. But it's important to get the message out, right? Now, this is a really damning statistic for the economy. Overnight, this study estimated that inactivity costs the world $90 billion a year. Okay? 90 billion. That's a lot of zeros. And this is mortality and disability associated with sedentary behaviour. We're here. This is what's going to happen if we don't change this. This is a major, we need to get this across the governments as well. I mean, we don't want to work in a draconian a workplace or schools, but we need to encourage the benefit of exercise. It's really important. Okay, so we know exercise is good for us, but how do we really know? How does exercise help and why should we care? And this is why we should care. Okay, these are the rates of smoking in the US, this is females and males, across the last 70 or so years. Now we can all see there's a dip here, yeah? All right, this is why there's a dip here. Because right here, Professor Terry was the Surgeon General in the US, and this was the first Surgeon General report that said we have definitive evidence that cigarette smoking causes lung cancer. And since, the rates have dropped, right? So what people need is convincing, and that's what we try and do in my lab. We try and convince people, giving a molecular basis to the benefits of exercise. And we do this in what's called the Myokine concept. This was a game changer for my career, right? I was an exercise physiologist until the year 2000. And in the year 2000, something wonderful happened to my career. I discovered something really important. We discovered that your muscles are endocrine organs, and they secrete proteins that talk to other areas of the body. And we called this the Myokine concept. I did this with my collaborator in Copenhagen. I went on sabbatical in the year 2000. We worked very, very hard, and we've really been known as the pioneers. We actually invented the name, myokine, and that means muscle secreting protein. And these myokines block adiposity, and they reduce the risk of type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and even cancer. And I'm going to give you one example of that before I go. Okay. There is evidence that some cancers are protected by physical activity. And one, colon cancer, there's very convincing evidence. But for breast cancer and endometrial cancer, Manny talked about breast cancer, there is probable evidence. The question is, how does this happen? Well, we think we know. So anyway, what Martin did, he did what was called a proteomic screen of muscle. And then we found out all these novel things that came out of muscle. And one of the things that came out was a protein called decrin. And this is important. So this is coming out of your muscles when you exercise, right? This is important because we went to the literature and we showed, the literature showed that this is a normal tissue, and the brown staining is decrin. So decrin is in normal tissue, but as you can see, this is disease severity, so they grade tumours. The more severe the tumour is, the less decrin is in it. And we have looked particularly at breast cancer in thousands of women with a colleague in the Breast Cancer Network Consortium. And what we show very clearly is that tumour grade, relapse-free survival and distant metastatic-free survival, decrin in the tumour is a prognostic indicator. So if you have more decrin in the tumour, you're better off. So we are now doing a study with Elgene Lim where we are trying to set up an exercise centre here. This is where we need help because we need to get this funded. And what we are going to do is we are going to take, so in Australia, this is what happens. A woman has a diagnosis. The tumour is then biopsied, and then depending on the etiology of the tumour, they do 12 weeks of chemotherapy. What we want to do is see if we exercise those women along with their chemotherapy, whether there's more decrin in their tumour when it's ablated 12 weeks later, and whether they have a better outcome. And if they have a better health outcome, that is going to transform clinical practice. So this is just a slide which is very complicated, and I had to put this in because it would be remiss of me to present a slide as a scientist which people don't understand. But you actually can understand this. This is just saying that all of these things, which I don't even understand some of them, I actually didn't write this review, but this person spelt one of the things wrong. But that's okay. But this is a nice visual. And what it's saying is that all of these things are regulated by your contracting muscle. So with that, thanks for your attention. This is I came from Melbourne last year, and my lab had a bit of a divorce, an amicable one. We're still very friendly with the 4 that remained in Melbourne. I go back there and see them often, and this is my group here. They're all really hard-working people. So I'll finish on that, and thanks for listening, and I'm happy to answer any questions.